was the origin, that was the original meaning. And even if you look through the New Testament and you see how the people viewed Jesus at his time, none of them worshipped him. None of them worshipped him.
Yeah, there was a lot of naysayers.
None of the people that he preached to worshipped him or thought of him as God. They always thought of him as the Messiah, or prophet, or a son of David, right? And son of man, or the son of God. And there was no understanding whatsoever that he was God himself. This is a later understanding. What you have adopted is a later understanding. Whereas for us, in our tradition, we say Jesus, peace be upon him, he was but a messenger. Many messengers came before him, right? We believe in the virgin birth. We believe that he did miracles, right? But we do not believe he was ever crucified. And you know, we have evidences for that, we can get into it. But we don't believe that he was ever crucified. We believe he's the Messiah.
Why doesn't Muhammad believe? Because I've seen that I think I've seen Muhammad himself said in scripture, Jesus wasn't crucified. He doesn't believe that Jesus is the Son of God.
No, so Muhammad, peace be upon him, is not the author of the Quran.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
I know that. What I'm saying is it not in the hadiths? I might be completely wrong.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Is it not in the hadiths that Muhammad himself says, I do not believe that Jesus was crucified? Something along those lines?
No, he doesn't. Not in that way. But he mentions about the return of Jesus, peace be upon him, and he mentions that the Son of Mary will descend on the eastern side of Damascus, on his hands on two angels. His hair will be wet, or seemingly wet. He'll have a saffron-like gown, sort of dress on. Not dress, but like attire. He'll have a saffron-like attire. Wearing, his hands will be on the wings of two angels, and we'll be witness to all of this. So that will be the de facto sign that is the Messiah, returning, which is different to the eschatology of the Bible. I understand, but this is our faith, and but that is an offshoot, because the core message is, as it is said in the Bible, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
So can you say
that's the Hebrew for Hear, O Israel. Your Lord, your God, your Lord is one, right? So I'm sure they taught you this.
Bro, I don't spend that much. I don't go to the church anyway.
No, but that should, see, the thing is, and this is what I'm saying to you, the core message is who God is.
Okay.
So even if you haven't gone to church or anything, the people who have invited you to the faith, that should be the number one thing, but it's not. The number one thing that they call you to is love, peace,
yes.
the crucifixion. Fine, but that's not devoid in Islam, right?
I respectfully, I don't.
That's
what
fine.
I've seen, I don't believe that's true.
That's fine.
I've read parts of the Quran,
that's fine.
Surah 9.
9:29, verse 5. Yeah, don't worry.
51:34.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
Well, for me,
but there's,
I would say the majority of Muslims are cool, right? But as for from what I've seen in the scripture itself, and you can definitely make the same criticism.
Yeah, don't need it. It's okay now, alhamdulillah.
You can definitely make the same criticism with the Old Testament, right? But the problem I have with that is that Christianity went through that reform, right?
No, New Testament as well. It's in the New Testament as well.
There's also a couple of things in the New Testament that you should be questioning.
But it's contextualized, right?
Yes, it's contextualized. But my problem is
so it's the same in the Quran.
But my problem is this. And once again, I think you're probably an alright guy. And the same will go to
maybe
2/3 of the Muslims in this.
Maybe not.
Maybe. Obviously, I don't know you like that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, there are clearly X amount of Muslims in the world, and you could probably make the same case for anyone of any religion.
What, terrorists?
Yeah, terrorists. Yeah. So
I agree.
But and what they say is every time they do something is Allahu Akbar. So why did they say my God is greater than yours every time they do something?
No, we don't say greater. We say he's the greatest.
Okay, so that's what Allah.
That's what it means. Allahu Akbar means Allah is the greatest.
Why is it when these guys go and do something bad, they always quote a verse from the Quran or the Hadith?
Look, people have done this throughout the centuries, right? Cite religious text that doesn't support them to claim that it supports them. Right. It happened in the Crusades. It happened with certain Islamic organizations. All right. But it doesn't mean that's what the teaching is, does it?
So what would you say is the tenets, the main tenets of Islamic teachings?
To believe in one God. To believe in one God, right? To believe in His prophets, to believe in the scriptures, to believe in the angels, to believe in predestination, whether it was good or bad, and to believe in the divine. And to believe in, heaven and hell, the last day. That's the 6 articles of faith that are key to every Muslim.
And in a practical sense, what does that look like? Like in a real world
In the real world
what
scenario,
does that look like? So how does a devout Muslim conduct themselves?
by treating his brother how he'd like to be treated,
Is that regardless of
regardless of faith.
Okay.
Right. So the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in his sermon, in his last sermon, that an Arab is not superior to a non-Arab, and a non-Arab is not superior to an Arab. Right. Black man is not superior to a white man. A white man is not superior to a black man. But the superiority comes in what? Piety. So those who are
I don't know that word.
piety, more righteous.
Okay.
Those who are more righteous, who stand with God, those are the ones who excel, right, and are better than others. But that's in the eyes of God. We don't go around and say, I'm better than you because I'm, I believe in God better than you do. No, this is for God to judge, right? But for us, we treat one another with kindness and humility. In the Quran, in chapter 6, verse 8, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah does not forbid you from dealing kindly and justly with those who do not throw you out of your homes. And of course, there's a historical context to that, as the Muslims, like the early Christians, were persecuted for simply being positioned for the camera.
Like a whole new thing.
Yeah. So so there's a context. Allah does not forbid us from dealing kindly and justly. And even if we talk about the context of war, like you said, chapter 9, verse 5, 929 and stuff, there is a specific context to that. And this is with regards to people who have enmity with us.
So since I mentioned it, what's the context of within which 929?
So 929 is actually in the context of a battle that never took place, right? But it mentions that, when people come to attack you, to fight you, to kill you, yes, you retaliate, right? You retaliate and you defend yourselves, you fight them back. And you have no mercy upon them when you're fighting them. But what people tend to not add on is in chapter 2, verse 190 to 192, it mentions the same thing. Fight them until there's no corruption. But if they stop fighting you, then you stop, right? So when hostility ceases, you should be quick to cease the hostility as well. And then it finishes off by saying, and Allah is forgiving, right? So we could talk about the wrath of Allah, but when it talks about the ceasing of hostility, Allah mentions His attribute of forgiveness, right? So I would advise you to read the Quran in its entirety.
I'm
Good.
If you'll give me a Quran, I don't know if that's a thing.
No. We usually do have a Quran. Can we get a Quran, inshallah, for him?
Do I bring it back? Or?
No. That's for you to keep. That's for you to keep. Yeah. Can someone bring one for him, inshallah?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
that's okay. That's not a problem. Yeah. At the end of the day, like we said, Islam is for all of mankind. It is not for the Arabs, particularly, or anyone. And like I said, Christianity in its inception, Judaism in its inception with Moses and with Jesus, it was for the but it was for the children of Israel, and it was never to be preached to be otherwise. Whereas Islam, at its inception, it was for all of mankind, right? As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran regarding the Prophet, peace be upon him, indeed we have sent you as a mercy to the worlds, right? Not even mankind, to the worlds. And the angel, and the thing is, it's interesting because there is a narration where with the angel Gabriel, he came, he was with the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And Muhammad, peace be upon him, asked the angel Gabriel, who said, he read this verse. When the verse was revealed, he asked the angel Gabriel, he said, has my mercy reached you? And the angel Gabriel said, yes, because until today I did not know my status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And of course we know that the angel is the supreme angel, right? He is the highest of the archangels even. But for the angel of Gabriel, it was the revelation of the Quran that gave him that peace with regards to his station with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's how the mercy of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, transferred to the angel Gabriel. So it's not even about mankind; it's for all the worlds. This is the power of the message of Islam. This is the power of the Quran that has come to the world. All right, so it's specifically for you. And when you read it, inshallah, you will see that how it speaks to you as an individual, as well as speaking to all of humanity. And the Quran is a guide. It is not a storybook. All right, it doesn't go through. It mentions some of the stories of the prophets, but in order to teach us a lesson, to give us guidance to be better. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentions about those who go astray, who choose to go astray, and gives them the warning. There is a balance here. that those who do righteous, they will attain good in this world and in the hereafter, and those who do bad deeds, they will attain a foul destiny in the hereafter, right? Namely hellfire. But at the end of the day, it's our choice how we conduct ourselves. So when you mentioned that most of the Muslims are good and good people, it's the Quran, it's the message of Islam that makes us this way.
Here's what confuses me is
Sure.
how people talk about Prophet Muhammad when he was in the Meccan period and then when he was in the
Medina. Yeah.
There seems to be quite a profound difference between how he conducts himself, how he preaches his teachings.
No.
So, from the way I can see it, it seemed like he was a more peaceful person and he was preaching a more positive message in the Meccan period than when he was in the Medinan period.
So we know which surahs are the Meccan and which ones are the Medinan surahs. But if you look at the Quran, you won't actually see a shift, right, in that. How the Prophet ﷺ conducted himself was the same way, even in Medina. Yes, he engaged in warfare and battle. He was a statesman, he was a leader, he was a military man, and he wasn't that in Mecca. But even in Mecca, when the companions were being persecuted and everything, he would give them prophecies of military conquests. He said, while they're being persecuted and killed, that's for you, no problem. While they were being persecuted and killed, the Prophet ﷺ said to them...
Does this have the hadiths in it as well?
No. The hadith is separate. You can come at any time and ask us questions and everything. Many of us have channels where you can, and contacts where you can email us and stuff. I'll give you my contacts if you need. He was telling them about military conquest. He said, you will conquer Constantinople, which happened. We know it happened. But this is at a time where they were persecuted. So when we're talking about the Prophet ﷺ and how he changed in regards to how he dealt with people, no. Because the prophecy in itself saying about his congregation, his people, the Muslims conquering other people, engaging in warfare.
That's a lot of mics going
on. I know. I'm already way down with the water. Now they've got the mics. Now they've got the mics on. So, So, and even when you see the Prophet ﷺ outside of war, during battle, he was a lion, fierce. The companions would hide behind him. If they were wavering in their courage, they would fight behind him, and he would go forth.
Is this? I know there's like 3 separate definitions for jihad. Is this what you define as jihad?
Yeah, this is also jihad. Yeah. Okay. Yeah? So jihad fi sabilillah comes in many forms. Yes, as you mentioned.
So it's like the inner war.
Yeah, the inner struggle. Then you've got defensive jihad and offensive jihad. Now. So in battle he was like that, but outside of battle he was the best man you could, even in warfare he conducted himself in a perfect way. But outside of the battlefield, he was just like he was in Mecca, even more gracious, right? The Prophet ﷺ, there's many stories. For example, the Jewish woman, every time he would walk past her, she'd throw rubbish at him, rotten stuff. She'd throw. And then one day he walked past her house and she didn't throw rubbish at him. Do you know what he did? He went in to check on her to see if she was okay. So, I mean, normally if it was me, walking past someone constantly, I'll be thankful. Oh, freaking, at least I get a day break. No, he went in to check on her. It's a Jewish woman who absolutely hates him, throwing rotten food at him. And he goes in to check on her.
So this is why I'm kind of bought the difference between him and the Meccan period and the Medina.
No, this is in Medina. This is in the Medina period. Yeah, because the Jews are situated in Medina.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
My bad.
That's okay.
So, see, in some ways it seems like he's a decent guy, right? But then, and I hate to bring this up because I know you probably get it a lot.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry.
The stuff with Aisha.
Yeah, that's fine.
Her being 6,
yeah.
and then 9. And I get that people make the argument that obviously it's a different time and back then, blah, 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 this and that.
See, I won't make that argument to you.
Yeah, so see, for me, the same way that we as a people, we've always understood the difference between man and woman. How is it that Muhammad, he seems like he was historically a pretty smart guy. How is it though he didn't understand that there was a difference between a child and an adult?
He did not.
But then, see, this is the problem I have though, is that she was still playing with toys, narrated by herself, isn't she?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And all the other girls would like disappear as soon as he appeared, and then he would do what he wants of her. How? And I understand that, like for Muslims, Muhammad is the
the pinnacle.
For example, you should aspire to what's the word?
To be like him, yeah, to emulate him.
Like
That's
isn't
it.
Right?
Yeah.
Does that not mean that you're also implying that what he did, paedophilia, is how I define it?
No, that's fine if you define it that way. So I have an understanding.
Does that not mean you're implying that what he did is acceptable?
Yes, not implying. We're saying yes, that's acceptable. Not only acceptable, we have no issues with it.
In all ages.
No, see, the thing is, we have.
Because this is what
No. Even his marriage. Okay, you mentioned pedophilia. Let's define pedophilia. Pedophilia is a sexual attraction to prepubescent children. Correct?
Yeah, and
that's how it's defined.
What would it be, isn't it?
Right. Was there a sexual attraction to her?
He had sex with her, isn't it?
No. She was 6 years old. Did he have a sexual attraction to her?
I can't say when she was 6 he had a sexual attraction to her.
Right, so he didn't.
He only married her, but at 9 he did have sex with her.
Okay. At 9 years old, she's a woman. Okay. We'll get to that. Okay. But we look at the definition and then we look at the reality. Now the reality is he wasn't even interested in her. Why did he marry her then?
I couldn't.
Allah told him to. All right.
Oh, so, he brought her down with that bird, isn't it? In the cloth or something like that. Like I read this yesterday or something, very briefly.
I'm not too certain of what
Allah sent her down like she was in some kind of.
Oh, the dream, yeah, okay, yeah. So then he went to Abu Bakr, and Abu Bakr was hesitant, radiallahu anhu. He was hesitant of giving his daughter to the Prophet Muhammad. But was the reason her age? It wasn't her age because someone else was already proposed to her before, right? So she was. It wasn't her age. It was because it was awkward between two best friends. That was his reason as to why he was hesitant. They were so close that he was like, "But you're my brother. That's how I see you. I can't give you my daughter because you're my brother." So that was the hesitance. And what do you call it? And Rasulullah corrected him. He was like, "Look, yes, we're brothers in Islam, but she's lawful to me." So, and at the end of the day, so the marriage in of itself happened due to revelation. It wasn't due to any pedophilic trope, right? And a pedophile, he will exercise his lust on a prepubescent child. What did he do, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? He waited 3 years until she attained womanhood. Now, why do we say attained womanhood? It's because she passed blood. She passed blood. So she became a woman, all right? So when that happened, then he consummated the marriage. So what does that do for us as Muslims today in this setting? A couple of things. Muslims mention about the time, which means we have to take into consideration culture. So, the times that we live in. That's one thing. The second thing is we ensure that we determine that she is a woman, that she's able to.
Okay, so can I ask you this? How would you define a woman?
How do we define a woman?
What meets the criteria of a woman?
Right. A woman is a woman who has passed blood, right?
But it's got to be more than that.
No, that's the defining transition for a woman between being a child and being an adult, right? See, for us as Muslims, we don't have the concept of teenager, adolescence.
Okay, so here's what I would say a woman is. And obviously, I've been born and raised here in London. I'm a Western guy.
I was born and raised here as well, but I don't buy into this. I
Here's how I and I think the majority of them, regardless of their religion, will believe what a woman is.
Okay.
It's an adult human female.
What makes her an adult human female?
She's past puberty. She's gone through the stage of puberty.
Exactly. So but that's exactly what I said. She passed blood.
If we're going to go by law, obviously we'll say it's 18 and over.
No, but the thing is, so we say passed blood, right, or puberty. Okay. Now there are some women that don't pass blood. Okay, but they're still considered women because they still go through puberty. They just don't pass blood, right? Amenorrhea is the condition. Now, that's the criteria for us, right? So we have to take into consideration the culture. We have to take into consideration the fact that the woman is a woman, right? And she's not a child. We have to take into consideration her mental ability, right? So she has to be able to consent as well, which Aisha radiallahu anha, she was able to do. Now, for us standing here today, thinking about a 6-year-old consenting, it's hard for us to understand.
Yeah,
I get that.
I would never accept it.
Okay, I get that. But that's the history, right? Yeah. That's the history. So we learn that a woman has to be able to give consent, okay? And that she's able to fulfill her duties, okay? As a wife, okay? So this is the other So these are the factors that we have to take into consideration when we are approaching a woman for marriage, right? Now, in some Arab countries, we still betroth our daughters
Yes.
at a young age, right? But we ensure that they've passed puberty and that they consent to the marriage. Forcing a woman to get married is prohibited in Islam, okay? Despite some cultures doing it, we fight against it. I'm aware of the problems that Muslims have.
Can I ask you where you're from, by the way?
Yemen.
Ethnically?
Yemen.
Oh, Yemen.
Yeah.
And are you Sunni or Shia?
I'm Sunni, alhamdulillah, yeah. Don't worry about the Shia. It's like,
Is there a big difference?
massive difference, right? So the Sunni position is evidenced, right? This is why I'm a Sunni, because I can evidence it from the Quran and the Sunnah and all our texts, right? And the tradition and everything. So when it comes to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when we break it down like this, we show that there was nothing immoral about what the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did. At the time he was living in, the culture had this, where women, girls as young as that, would get married. Okay, but he set the standard.
I came here to see him as well.
He gave us the example of how to conduct ourselves when approaching marriage. It was not to say that because he's the example for us, that means we got to go around finding 6-year-olds. That's not what it means, right? In fact, marrying a 6-year-old is one of the things that is not a sunnah for us.
So,
it is not a tradition for us.
Iraq recently, you probably know this. I saw this a few weeks ago. Their parliamentary system, or whatever, their government system, they were attempting to implement
The Sharia.
No. So they wanted to lower the age limit for
That's
marriage
fine.
for little girls.
Yeah, that's fine.
From whatever it was down to, I think it was 9.
I don't think it was as low as 9.
From what I understand, it was 9.
I've not seen as low as 9.
So,
but regardless,
is that justified?
Regardless, if no, see,
based on
the thing is, for me, yeah, exactly. It's got to be based on the evidence of the scriptures and the tradition.
Yeah.
Islam does not have an age of consent, right? It doesn't have an age of consent. Because, for example, let's take the 9-year-old example. For example, if Iraq is indeed doing that. If it's a 9-year-old girl, okay, but even if, let's say it goes through. If there is a 9-year-old who consents, who is able to consent, who's past the age of puberty, who can fulfill her duties in the marriage, and it's society and the society and the culture accepts it, then by all means go for it. But why is there no age of consent in Islam? Because we could have a 25-year-old girl, beautiful, what do you call it? She's past her menses and everything, but she has a mental illness. Does that qualify her for marriage? No.
No, because you wouldn't be able to say that she's able to give.
Exactly.
But this is what I was going to say.
I don't know.
Mind me interrupting.
That's fine. Yeah.
This is what I was going to say. We have to go at this, I guess, from a more scientific point of view. So science would say a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old are not able to give consent because their brain hasn't fully developed in a way that
today, yeah, I agree.
Moral decisions.
Today, yes, I agree.
Marriage is a highly moral decision.
I agree.
Engaging in sex, especially for the first time, even for me, that's a highly moral decision. And science has said it's not done from day one.
But notice what I said. If they have the mental ability, right, to consent, to fulfill their duties, that's the only time they will be. If that's not fulfilled, we cannot marry them.
But what I'm implying is that Aisha wouldn't have had the ability to consent.
No, but you're taking 21st century studies and imposing it on the 7th century. The 7th century.
How do we know then that Aisha herself was able, mentally speaking, physically, you can make the case? She's the one you make the case that she really can consent. Because science says we've been like this from day one in terms of our mental development.
No, but that's not true.
So then did she develop differently?
No, Aisha radiallahu anha, she was like most of the women at her time. At a very young age. I can even prove it to you today, right? When we look at war-torn countries or countries that have extreme poverty, you see little children, as young as 6, 7, 8. They're doing the work of adults. Why? Because in order to survive, they are forced to mature mentally,
Yes.
right? The environment around them forces them to mature quicker than a girl would in the UK, living a comfortable life. Likewise, in the 7th century, you have the desert, you know, so it's always survival. So you're forced to mature.
Yeah, I get it.
So Aisha radiallahu, that's one perspective, right? But we know in the history that in the Arabian Peninsula, the girls were able to consent at that time. It was a norm, right, for girls to be married at that time. So like I said, to question the history here, it doesn't really make sense because it's well documented. In fact, what has happened in the Arabian Peninsula, particularly in the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ, is more documented than any other time in history with relation to an individual and a community. So there is no questions about that. Yes, there are people that try to cast doubt on that and go down the Orientalist route, but we have arguments to prove that they are wrong in their assessments. But going back to the whole idea of paedophilia as well. What are the mental and what's the mental trauma and the physical trauma that one would get from that? We know what girls go through mentally when they are abused in that way at a young age. You don't see any of those. You don't see any of that in Aisha radiallahu anha. In fact, she grew not only to love the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to defend him, but she was a scholar. She propagated his religion, right? All of these things are the complete polar opposite of what you would expect.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So I understand.
I'm not saying she can't grow to love who he was, but
yeah, we can talk about that. We can talk.
As a child, it was wrong for Muhammad to engage in sex.
No, but he didn't. That's the thing.
When she was like, he had sex with her.
When she was a woman, he did. He consummated when she became a woman.
Sorry, I just want to ask. So when you say she became a woman, is it when puberty starts, kind of thing, or is it?
No, when she was
as soon as that
her menses. Yeah, when the menses. So for us, the sign of puberty, of someone hitting puberty and reaching the age of accountability.
Yeah.
It's a physical sign. For the women, it's passing blood, and for the men, it's their first wet dream, right? So for me, I'm not going to say for me when it's cameras, but for any Muslim man, as soon as he has his first wet dream, he's accountable by Allah. At that point, Allah has decided that you are capable of making decisions, moral decisions. So that is the marker of when a man and a woman can engage in intimacy, can get married and engage in intimacy.
So you don't, like, the way we view it here in, like, Western civilization would be teenager, and that whole period is you becoming. You say as
for us
soon as that happens,
you're an adult.
Okay, so my question after what he just said is, how do you decide that? How old are you? Is you not what I'm asking?
I'm 33.
33, right. So
how old do you think I am? No, I'm joking. Yeah, go on.
How would you then compare you as a 33-year-old to, I don't know, a 15-year-old boy? Would you say that you're able to make moral decisions better than he is? Or?
No, look, in terms of the decisions of right and wrong, obviously my experience, my life experience, will allow me to make better decisions than he can. But the principle of knowing between right and wrong is the same. I just have more experience, right? That's the only thing that's separating between me and a 15-year-old is experience, is a life experience. Life experience has taught me how to analyze certain decisions in several more ways than I would have at 15. And this is what we pass on to them. We don't, at 15, I wouldn't go to a 15-year-old and teach him what is right and wrong. You get me?
You have to let him know.
He already knows. I just help him in his thought process of how to judge things. That's the thing. But I don't need to go to a 15-year-old and say, by the way, this is right and that's wrong. Don't need to do that. No one does that. Unless, of course, they have an impairment of some sort, and that's where the pin. And for us in Islam, if someone has a mental impairment that they cannot make those decisions, moral decision, the pen is lifted. Allah does not hold them to account, because out of His justice. So why would you hold someone to account who can't make a decision for himself? There's the justice and there's the mercy of Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's not unjust to any of His mankind. He doesn't command anything that's immoral. Even with, we touched briefly on jihad, even in jihad, the enemies have rights. Yeah? So if we capture an enemy and we tie them up, we cannot harm them. Right? So if they are tied, we are not allowed to harm them. Because they're tied, they're subdued.
You're going to make a few more points, aren't you?
Yeah. So I'm just, you know, in terms of the people that we capture, in terms of